The Secretary General praised President Zelensky's leadership and the bravery of the Ukrainian forces and people, but acknowledged that leadership and bravery alone cannot repel the Russian forces. You also need arms and ammunition. He recognized that serious delays in support have translated to serious consequences on the battlefield. Ukraine has been outgunned for months. Fewer Russian missiles and drones have been shot down, and Russia has been able to push forward on the front line, said Mr. Stoltenberg. But it is not too late for Ukraine to prevail. More support is on the way. Defense ministers heard President Zelensky's clear appeal at a meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council a few days ago, and they agreed to step up our support, said Mr. Stoltenberg. He welcomed the major new package from the United States, providing over $60 billion worth of aid, as well as new commitments by the UK, Germany, and the Netherlands, adding, "I expect further announcements soon." The two leaders addressed preparations for the NATO summit in July. Allies have already agreed to plan for a greater NATO role in coordinating security assistance and training for Ukraine, said the Secretary General. I believe we also need a major, multi-year financial commitment to sustain our support, to demonstrate that our support to Ukraine is not short-term and ad hoc, but long-term and predictable. Moscow must understand they cannot win, and they cannot wait us out. On membership, Mr. Stoltenberg said, Ukraine's rightful place is in NATO. Ukraine will become a member of NATO. The work we are undertaking now puts you on an irreversible path towards NATO membership, so that when the time is right, Ukraine can become a NATO member straight away. Later on Monday, Secretary General Stoltenberg delivered an address to the Verkhovna Rada, the Ukrainian parliament. He underlined the importance of preserving Ukraine's freedom, adding that Ukraine is fighting to defend the same democratic values present at the heart of NATO. While in Kiev, Mr. Stoltenberg also visited the National Defense University, greeting members of the armed forces of Ukraine. He also met staff from the NATO representation to Ukraine to thank them for their service and dedication. NATO countries have not delivered what they promised to Ukraine in time, which has benefited Russia on the front line, Jens Stoltenberg has said. Serious delays in support have meant serious consequences on the battlefield for Ukraine, the NATO Secretary General said in Kiev while meeting the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Ukrainian officials say Russia is assembling forces for a major summer offensive, even if its troops are making only incremental gains at the moment. The lack of ammunition has allowed the Russians to push forward along the front line, Stoltenberg added. Lack of air defense has made it possible for more Russian missiles to hit their targets, and the lack of deep strike capabilities has made it possible for the Russians to concentrate more forces. Zelensky said new Western supplies have started arriving, but slowly. This process must be speeded up, he said. The head of the southern Kherson region said Russian shelling killed one person in the last 24 hours. Debris showed that a North Korean Hwasong-11 ballistic missile hit Kharkiv on the 2nd of January. UN sanctions monitors have told a Security Council committee in a report seen by Reuters. The missile was most likely illegally supplied to Russia, they conclude. North Korea is accused of developing such weapons and supplying them to Russia despite being under UN sanctions for its ballistic missile and nuclear programs since 2006. Ukraine's allies have accused North Korea of transferring weapons to Russia for use against Ukraine in violation of an arms embargo. The US has accused Russia of launching North Korean-supplied ballistic missiles against Ukraine on at least 9 occasions. Away from the front line, Polish farmers have lifted blockades at border crossings with Ukraine, officials said on Monday, ending a 2-month protest over farm imports and alleged unfair competition. Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, made an unannounced visit to Ukraine, the first British royal to travel to the country since Russia's 2022 full-scale invasion. Buckingham Palace said on Monday that Sophie, wife of Prince Edward, met Zelensky and First Lady Olena Zelenska in Kiev and delivered a message on behalf of King Charles III. It did not disclose the timing or details of the visit. The palace said Sophie made the trip to demonstrate solidarity with the women, men, and children impacted by the war, and in a continuation of her work to champion survivors of conflict-related sexual violence.